I'm late to the show. It's not really always my own doing because we do a Rufino and Joe show right before this, and we cover all of college football. But today I'm a little bit late because Pete Nakos is reporting that LSU quarterback, defensive back, running back, and he can pass. Jawan Johnson has plans to enter the transfer portal. Listen. I was trying to get confirmed the Nakos report. It does seem like Jawan Johnson is at least intending or has told some people that he intends to enter the transfer portal. But Pete Nakos of On 3 is reporting that Jawan Johnson is going to be entering the portal. And I guess we can start to show off with that. Look, I think Jawan Johnson's a really good player, a really good athlete. I think, you saw him at LCA, one of record breaker at LCA, and a lot of things that he did inside the state of Louisiana. This state has put out a lot of really, really, really good talent, and a lot of the records that he broke. I think he's a positionless player at the current moment. I think he should have stayed on the defensive side of the football, personally. I think that was his best chance to make it to the NFL. I know that he wants to play quarterback, but, guys, I've been at those practices, right? Like, I was at those practices when they tried to make him a quarterback, and outside of being an electric runner against a third-team defense, throwing the football had not been his strength. Look, I've been kind of holding this for a couple of days now. I know that he's been very vocal on social media about being a quarterback, and it just appears right now that LSU wants to move on in a different direction than that. I think Jawan's going to land on his feet somewhere. He's going to do a lot of really good things, and he has a chance to do a lot of really good things. Just don't think that this at LSU is going to work out for him in reference to that. Guys, you're going to go in a completely different direction when it comes to the running back position moving forward. I don't think this is your last quote-unquote running back to hit the portal. I'm going to be really intrigued to see what happens with Caleb Jackson. I'm going to be really intrigued to see with the potential retention of Frank Wilson or non-retention of Frank Wilson, how that room shakes out, to be honest with you. But that room's going to get shaken up from a personnel standpoint. There's going to be players that come in from the portal in that room. Guys, you did not land a running back in this class. You didn't. And you just can't do that because right now you have two scholarship running backs that you likely will go into next season with. Again, I do think Caleb Jackson leaves. I do think that he moves on along with Jawan Johnson. You have two scholarship running backs right now that I anticipate. Caleb Jackson might not leave. For all I know, he might not leave at all. But right now you only have two, and Caleb Jackson hasn't seen the field in quite some time. I just look at this entire situation and say to myself, that whole room needs a revamp, whether you want to keep Frank or not. And I know that this has been a massive talking point. I understand that Frank Wilson has been a massive talking point, and he deserves to be a massive talking point. Guys, he's your interim head coach right now. A lot of people want him to be retained as your running backs coach, and I understand that. But that room, based off of what Lane Kiffin wants to do, is going to have to take a shift. Does Kawan Lacey go in the portal? Now, there have been lies spewed, and I'm going to double down on that a little bit here today because a lot of people are questioning Lane Kiffin in reference to what he does offensively. Like, guys, I see it. I know that you see it. I know that you hear it. I know that you've seen everything that's been going on here. I'm going to double down and tell you why you shouldn't have any concern whatsoever. Not based off of his track record. I just don't think Jawan Johnson was going to be taking a lot of reps here moving forward at that position. I've been told that he wants to play quarterback, and, well, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I don't think that he's a P4 quarterback. I don't. I think he's a hell of an athlete and could do a lot of really good things for you, point blank at that position, but I think he needs a lot of development there, and he needs to be better at throwing the football. So, Pete Nakos of On 3 is reporting that Jawan Johnson is going to be entering the portal. Good luck to him. Very much good luck to him. I hope that he has a lot of success. He's a really good athlete. I do think the defensive side of the football is his best position. I think being a safety would have been his best position. but that is just my overall opinion. Nevertheless, we're live. Everyone do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all of those social media pages. You're watching this on YouTube. Listen, we're trying to get to 20,000 subs. We're on the march to get to 20,000 subs here. I need you to do me a favor. 59.3% of you, as we looked this morning, are not subbed to the YouTube channel that are consuming the content. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. We're sending stuff to people that are helping us grow the show. So to Rick, to Specman, some of these LSU hoodies that you probably might not be able to get to in stores, we got a really good connection. This isn't LSU official merch, just throwing that out there. But we are going to be sending you stuff. So if you can show me that you sent the YouTube channel to 10 of your friends, you got people to sub, we'll do the same for you here. So hit that subscribe button down below. We greatly appreciate it. To everyone listening to us on the audio podcast, thank you for being here. Hit that 5-star button rating for us too as well. All right, let's get moving. Every AYS Sports Show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app today. Use your mobile device in doing so. Who do you think is going to win the Heisman? Do you think it's Fernando Mendoza? You can go place that bet with our good friends over at FanDuel. Minus 2,500 odds when it comes to Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy. You can place that bet with our good friends over at FanDuel. Do you think that someone's going to shock the world in reference to who's going to win the Heisman? You can place that bet there as well. You want to place some bets on the playoff, the Texas Bowl, whatever you want to do. You want to place those bets, you can do it with our good friends and partners over at FanDuel. For any thoughts, questions, concerns, go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details, and you can do what I've done. I set my preferences there because I don't like spending more money than, because you can lose track of it. I've set a limit. You can set a limit. It's why we partner with FanDuel in all of this. Jesse Rogers became a member on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Probably going to get some more content out to you on Thursday or tomorrow. Probably Tuesday, Thursday, membership content will be out. It's been pretty electric, man. Over 1,300, moving on to 1,400 of you are becoming members on the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Our good friend Christian Pratt, who we posted a video of him when Lane Kiffin came to LSU, of him dancing, is now a member of the YouTube channel. My good friend Christian, good to have you in here with us as well. Lars says, my YouTube is me playing video games. Hey, man, do it. Do what you got to do, man. Do what you got to do, brother. I thought about that. I don't have the time. Like I have the college football game. I just don't have the time. Like I haven't played a video game in a hot minute, but the last month and a half has been a really interesting time to say the least. But we thought about it. I just don't really have the time. All right. On the agenda of the day is E-Rob. Is he backing out of LSU? Where could LSU turn to? We brought up some names last night, kind of here or there. We'll bring up some names, some that we're hearing, some that are just strictly opinion of me testing the waters. If I was Lane Kiffin, we'll get to that as well. Do you have your defensive line coach already in the building? And no, I'm not talking about Kyle Williams. We'll get to that as well. I'm going to double down on this thing with LSU in reference to the offense. I keep seeing a lot of people push for trying to tell Lane Kiffin what he should do on the offensive side of the football. Stop being hypocritical. When Lane Kiffin was hired, you're like, it's the best offensive play caller in the country. Well, his staff comes along with that too. We'll talk about that as well. All eyes on Ole Miss. Guys, I think that Ole Miss's playoff run, ironically, especially on the offensive side of the football, is an LSU invitational. I really do. There are things that I'm going to be looking out for with Charlie Weiss Jr., this wide receiver room, this running back room, everything that is encompassing of this Ole Miss team and this Ole Miss game in the playoffs. Because, guys, you get to see your head coach. You get to see, again, yet up close and personal, in potentially 2 games, you get to see your entire offensive staff and what they will do in critical moments in the playoff. Ole Miss faces off against Tulane. Then if they win that, they'll likely face off again against Georgia. And here's the biggest question. I keep hearing from Ole Miss fans and Ole Miss media, oh, Lane Kiffin's, this team's better than Lane Kiffin. You don't need Lane Kiffin. We're going to find out. You better beat Tulane by more than 35 points in the playoff. That's all I got to say. If you're Pete Golden, you better go out there and make a statement. Can you score 35 straight points on Georgia like Lane Kiffin did in the game that he called? You say you don't need him. Well, we're going to find that out, and we're going to get to that as well. But there is something that I want to get to before we move on here. You know, there's a lot that's been made over the last couple of days, weeks, even a month from Ole Miss people, Ole Miss fans, Ole Miss media in reference to everything that has been surrounding Lane Kiffin. And I understand it. You are losing your head coach to an arch and bitter rival. You don't like LSU. We don't like you. I understand the hatred that you have for Lane Kiffin at the current moment. Guys, and I would say this to all of Ole Miss fans. If there's anybody that understands what Ole Miss is going through right now at head coach with Lane Kiffin leaving and going to LSU, it's going to be LSU. Guys, the coach that we had that led us to a national title in 2003 literally went to Miami and then came back in the SEC to a division rival in Alabama. Trust me, we've all been there. And the rivalry over the last 2 decades, which a lot of you saw this, was electric between LSU and Alabama. Our former head coach versus our team and going up against it. I understand all of that. But the biggest thing that I have felt over the last 2.5, 3 weeks when it comes to Ole Miss and this LSU and Lane Kiffin and staff and all of that, the word that comes to the top of my mind in all of this is hypocrite or hypocritical. You know, I hear Keith Carter out there saying select things about Lane Kiffin. Oh, everything he said, you know, parts of that wasn't true. Well, the actions are speaking a little bit louder than what your words on a podcast are doing. The actions of what you have. Lane Kiffin can't coach the playoff. His staff, if you're going to leave, you can't coach the playoff, then you bring the staff back. Because the truth of the matter is, when it all came down to it, when it was the final say in all of this, you knew that you had a playoff run and you had no offensive coaches. You know, I've heard Pete Golding go out there and say, I am who I am. I don't do hot yoga. I dress the way I dress. I cut my hair the way I cut my hair. Love Pete. Good on him. But in that, you're taking a shot at the guy that employed you at Ole Miss, that being Lane Kiffin. And I understand that Pete Golding's kind of got to take some shots at Lane to kind of build his fandom at his new spot in the first time that he's been a head coach. But taking shots at Lane Kiffin, Keith Carter going out there taking shots at Lane Kiffin, why are you doing some of the same things that Lane Kiffin did? What do I mean? You just hired an offensive coordinator in John David Baker. John David Baker was on Lane Kiffin's staff. So as much as you hate Lane Kiffin, as much as you hate all the things that he did, and you go out there and you spit all these nonsensical things at Lane Kiffin and how the transition went, some of them I understand. But you go out there and you say all of these things. You go out there and you do all of these things. And how bitter and mad that you are only to try to replicate some of the things that he already did. So was he a good head coach or not? Because you have told me that, oh, well, Pete Golding had to bail him out a lot. Who gave up 40 points to Georgia? And your only loss of the year? Who scored 35 straight points against the SEC champion? So the whole offensive staff that you're saying is not good, LSU's entire offensive staff that is employed right now is in your building. They're in your building. And yet, for your offensive coordinator move, you go to a guy that Lane Kiffin molded, a guy that's from the Lane Kiffin tree. So did he lead you to success or no? A guy that was literally molded offensively by the guy that you hate the most. I think it's a great move by Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin, said that he thought it was a great hire by Pete Golding and Ole Miss, and Ole Miss fans hated it. Oh, my God, just go away. Well, you hired one of his guys to be your next offensive coordinator so that you don't have to change much. This rivalry between LSU and Ole Miss is only going to get better. As the offseason starts to come in and we start winding down and the offseason, it will probably wind down a little bit. But as we get closer into the summer months into next year, as SEC Media Days comes forth, as the season in 2026 starts coming near, that intensity of that rivalry is going to start taking different levels. You think it's toxic right now? You think that the toxicity between Lane Kiffin, LSU, and Ole Miss, and Pete Golding, and Keith Carter, and Verge Osbury, you think that toxicity is bad right now? My brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ Almighty, that is going to take another couple of steps when games on the field are going to be played, and you actually got to go in and all of those words that you said, I don't do hot yoga, says Pete Golding. Okay, well, you better make sure that you win. Because from an LSU side of things, we hear you, we see you. You talked a lot of shit. Again, you cannot swallow the pill of the guy that you hate the most right now. You're doing some of the same things that he did. John David Baker is a Lane Kiffin dude. Oh, and by the way, our entire offensive staff is in your building. How does that make you feel? So all the stuff that you said that Keith Carter did a really good job of, all the early stuff that you said Pete Golding has done a really good job of, our entire staff is currently sitting across from your players. Remember when you said that players didn't want this, they didn't want Lane Kiffin, they didn't want the staff? Well, how toxic is that room right now? How divided is that locker room right now? All of that shit that you spewed, all of that shit that you talked, all of those things that you've said, it's going to come to a head come October of next year. And then the year after that. And then the year after that. And then the year after that. Keep that same energy. You know, we've been talking about people wanting to become a part of AYS and us doing merch. I'm still looking for somebody. I still have not received any DMs that have swayed me to do it. I want to do it. But, you know, the funny thing about all of this has been for me and all of this and calling him a hoe, saying you can't make a hoe into a housewife, all the craziness that's come out from all of this. I want to make a shirt that says hoe, H-E-A-U-X. I do. But you're doing everything despite the man that you hate the most. And I'm just going to tell you, you better keep that same energy. Everybody that's turned on LSU right now, Pat McAfee, Reese Davis, Desmond Howard, to Tim Brando, to all of Joel Klatt, to Colin Cowherd, all of these people who have turned on you. Guys, they've turned on you. They turned on you. The best coach that you could have hired is Lane Kiffin, and they turned on you. Sounds good. The calendar is the calendar is the calendar. Keep that same fucking energy. Actions always speak louder than words. And Ole Miss is going out there spatting off at the mouth. Oh, we don't like Lane Kiffin. We are hiring a dude that he molded. Oh, my God, this staff can't come back. There's no way that we're going to allow them to coach the playoffs. They're in your building. We came to your trap and took over your trap. And we're going to continue to do it because the pill that Ole Miss fans, media, and people can't swallow right now because it's coming. LSU is a better overall program than you are. They always will be. They always will be. You might beat them next year. You might. But LSU was beating Saban in the early years too. And over the next 2 decades, he kicked our ass. He kicked our ass. Other than Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow. Other than Jaden Daniels being Jaden Daniels. Keep that same energy. Keep running off at the mouth, and you're going to look like a fool. All right, let's get moving here. We got to talk about this defensive line situation. Is Z-Rob coming? Is he not? We'll dive into that next. Let me get to a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the defensive line. Ed Orgeron's constantly in my DMs right now. We'll talk about that as well. Randall Joyner, some of these guys that are Ole Miss, are they going to follow Lane Kiffin too? We got a lot to discuss. Stay with us.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call call Tyler. He'll shoot you straight.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Red Stick Financial. They're your local residential mortgage broker located right here in the heart of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At Red Stick Financial, they find the bank that works for your particular set of needs to purchase the home of your dreams or refinance the current one. They truly are your partners in this process, and they pride themselves in helping individuals and families with one simple goal in mind, and that is to make home financing approachable, attainable, and stress-free. They are licensed in all Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi. So from Amarillo to Meridian and everything in between, they have you covered. Red Stick Financial brings you creative, customized solutions, and they don't believe in the one-size-fits-all when it comes to loans. They even have special options for mobile and manufactured homes located in a flood zone and stated income financing for those of us who are self-employed borrowers. If you or someone you know is looking to buy a home, refinance an existing mortgage, or simply want to know what options are out there for your future, give Red Stick Financial a call today at 225-407-9250. That's 225-407-9250. Or check them out online at redstickfinancial.com. That's redstickfinancial.com. Before you purchase the home of your dreams or you go and do that refinance, you need to go local. Go Red Stick.
We're back.
All right, let's get to it here. Brandon, here we go again. Guys, stand by. Stand by. I don't know why it keeps doing that every time that we come out of a break. I have absolutely no idea why it keeps doing that, but they're working on the internet right now. They're trying to give us fiber wire into the studio. So hopefully we're able to get that in there and have no more issues. All right, let's move on here. Before we get rolling into E-Rob and the defensive line situation, I want to send my condolences to Kevin Faulk and his family. In case you missed it last night, it was reported by, I believe, WAFB that Kevin Faulk and his family had an unfortunate situation where he lost a loved one. Look, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I please go read the article over at WAFB. I don't know how I could make it through talking about like what the article did, but Kevin Faulk lost a loved one, someone he's really close to, literally. And look, the only thing that I'd say with this is that I just send my deepest condolences to Kevin Faulk. I cannot imagine having to be in a situation multiple times of, having children and living longer than them. My mind doesn't wrap around it. My mind can't wrap around it. Guys, children are the best thing that we can do. Children are when we leave a legacy, because we all leave our stamp on this world, good, bad, or indifferent. The way that we all leave our legacy is is by our children and how we raise them and how we impact the world. And my mind can't go there, man. I am praying for Kevin Faulk. I am praying for his family. I am praying that they can find peace in a very, very difficult situation. So condolences to Kevin Faulk and condolences to the Faulk family. I don't know anymore, man. This world is littered with really, really bad situations, and I just don't get why it happens to really good people. I never understand why it happens to really good people. So, nevertheless, we are praying for the Faulk family. We are praying for them to have comfort, and I just hope that the Lord gives them the strength that they need moving forward here, because it's a really, really bad situation. All right. Brandon, let's do it one more time. Do it one more time. Stand by, guys. An email this morning. We got an email this morning saying that they were trying to get fiber internet into the studio here, and I have to go live earlier in the day because I have family in town and we're taking our dad out to eat, my brother and I, and we just got done talking about Kevin Faulk. And look, man, it is what it is. But hopefully the internet stays good here. I'm praying for the Faulk family, man. It's very, very unfortunate. All right. Let's move into some LSU football here. So yesterday I came out and said that I think that we're going to start getting some finality on this Elijah Robinson news. In case you missed it, just to recap it very quickly, Elijah Robinson, the former defensive line coach and interim head coach for Texas A&M, former defensive coordinator at Syracuse, looked like he was going to be taking the job at LSU as the next defensive line coach. As of right now, it has been reported by Matt Zenitz that is up in the air, that Elijah Robinson may be going to Nebraska and reconnecting with Matt Rule. We talked about this last night. Just to reemphasize, I think that would be a very silly move by Elijah Robinson to do that. I think that he should not take the job at Nebraska over taking the job at LSU. I think that Lane Kiffin and the staff and this team moving forward is on a trajectory that could help him more in his career. I just think that he does. I don't think that this is, I think this is more of a preference of him. And look, I'm not saying that he's scared to take the job or anything like that. I think it would be the best thing for his career. And I think he's going to explore some other options just to see what's out there before, if he does ultimately take the job. I don't think that that's over yet, but I do think that we start getting some finality here behind the scenes today and moving forward. I was told that I think that LSU wants to get some kind of finality so that they can move on and go get a defensive line coach. Let's see what ultimately happens. But I have been told, like I stated last night, that LSU wants some form of finality of where they want to go and what they can do. We are going to monitor that situation, and when the news comes out, when the news breaks, or we get finality, we will talk about it. But we've talked a lot about Elijah Robinson being your defensive line coach. Guys, I think that the biggest thing for me in the turnaround of Blake Baker in this defense from year one under him to year two was how much better and physical you were in the interior line of scrimmage. Guys, I think that an unsung hero this season defensively, more than Jack Pyburn, but like Jack Pyburn, like Wick Weeks, like a lot of these guys with Jacoby and Guillory. Your interior of your defensive line did a lot of really, really good things in stopping the run. You know, outside of Marcel Reed and Diego Pavia hitting some long runs on you, and that's something that Blake Baker's going to have to fix, is quarterbacks that can run and stopping them more consistently. Guys, teams didn't really run the ball at you and just lining up and running at you really for 2 years, but really this year, the interior of your defensive line was a big deal. Guys, offensively, we all know what our struggles were, is that your offensive line stunk. And listen, we talk about this in the offseason so much, but y'all know this, and I'm not teaching you or telling you something that you don't know. If you don't win the line of scrimmage, if you don't win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, you're just not going to go where you want to go. And LSU and Blake Baker did a very, very good job with bringing in a guy like Bernard Gooden, having experience with guys like Jacoby and Guillory. What is Don McKinley going to be? Are you going to take that next step to being the 5-star that everybody thought that you would be? But you had a lot of rotation inside that interior. You had a young guy in Zion Williams who I thought gave you a lot of big snaps down the stretch. And it gave you a lot of big snaps against teams like South Carolina. You have a lot of talent there, and you're bringing in a lot of talent with Deuce Geralds, Richard Anderson, and Lamar Brown. That room is going to be very, very, very talented moving forward here. But who's going to be their coach? I think that from Blake Baker, the biggest thing we talk about, the secondary, the revamp of the secondary, guys, that was a massive deal. Again, I think that I can make the argument that you had one of, if not the overall top secondary in the country, much less the SEC. I do think you had the best secondary in the SEC this year, with DJ Pickett being the freshman of the year in the SEC. That's probably coming. It's not official yet. Mansour Delane is a All-American. It's going to be a first-team All-American. AJ Halsey was a first-team All-SEC safety. You did a lot of massive things in your secondary to help you out up front too. There's no disregarding that. But I think that something as the season went on this past year, what we didn't talk about a lot was, guys, Jacoby and Guillory and Bernard Gooden, there were a lot of unsung heroes. You know, the couple of games that you had with Weeks, you kind of struggled there, and we probably didn't talk about it as enough of a massive factor of what it really was. But your interior of your offensive or defensive line, played very well. Got to get better in some situations moving forward with Blake Baker in the run defense, especially stopping a quarterback that can run the football. We'll have a lot of time to talk about that during the offseason. But Elijah Robinson looks to be trending maybe in another direction. So where do you go? Last night I said that we will talk about that. I'm going to talk about some opinions first. So there are some things that I would specifically do. There's a guy out there, by the way, that I think that everybody has looked at and said to themselves is untouchable of leaving the place that he's at. No, it's not Larry Johnson. I look at Freddie Roach at Alabama, who's been there with Saban, who's been there with Kalen DeBoer, and ask him if he wants to change the scenery. If you're giving me autonomy to make a leap at another massive name, I'm calling Freddie Roach. I don't think that happens, right? Like, that is just strictly opinion. I think that Alabama, coming out of the Saban era into the DeBoer era, I think they've still been really good along their defensive line. They found some edge rush guys that have been really good that a lot of people thought that they wouldn't have. But Freddie Roach has been one of the best defensive line coaches. I'm sure he would want to take the entire line. He's not going to be able to do that. I think it's a massive it would be a massive leap. He would be my first call. See what he thinks. Hadn't left Alabama in a long time. It's been there 3 different stints. Going in there and asking him and trying to pluck him away would be the biggest move that you could make outside of Lane Kiffin and Blake Baker. It would probably be the biggest assistant move that you've made in quite some time. Don't think it would happen. He'd be my number 1 call. However, let's talk about some things that likely could happen. I'm still very intrigued what happens with Chris Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's brother. Now, I look at Chris Kiffin, and I look at his track record. In 2011, he was the defensive line coach for Arkansas State. He was the Ole Miss defensive line coach when they had a lot of good, really good defensive lines from 2012 to 2016. He was a defensive coordinator with his brother in 2017. After being a coordinator with his brother, he went and tried to test his ranks, doing some of the things that his dad did in trying to become an NFL coach. He took over multiple defensive lines in the NFL that had a lot of success. The Cleveland Browns, as an example, was a place that he was in 2020 to 2022. They led, by the way, their playoff run, was led by their defensive line. I look at him being at San Francisco and some of those Super Bowl runs and some of the things that they did along the defensive line. They were very good there as well. I do wonder what the overall status of Chris Kiffin is going to be. Now, it appears that Kyle Williams is going to, I don't think retire is the good word, but it looks like that he wants to move on from college coaching. And that is why we are here where we are. I don't know if you can convince him to give you another year. It doesn't seem that likely. It doesn't feel that likely. But I also wonder what's going to happen with Chris Kiffin. He was an analyst the last couple of years with his brother, a defensive analyst, which, guys, in today's college football means really nothing, which means that, guys, I think that all of this shit is titles and money. How you title somebody, how you orchestrate, and how you do things. I really just don't think that him being a defensive analyst or either at Ole Miss or here is really cares or matters. Because now in defensive or now in college football, you can make an analyst of somebody and it doesn't matter. They can coach a position and have their own room. I bring up the Lance Guidry thing again. I just don't know the overall status of what Chris Kiffin will be, but I look at Lance Guidry this past year. Guys, he coached the star position. Yes, on paper, was he a quote-unquote analyst? Like, was he an analyst? Sure, but I was there for all those practices. He wasn't no damn analyst. He wasn't an analyst. He was a position coach. Whether we want to admit it or not, he was a position coach. And I do wonder if E-Rob does ultimately move on, what is the status of Chris Kiffin going to be? Now, I kind of mentioned this last night, and I said that, and I'm going to go a little bit more in detail because that, I kind of left a carrot hanging out there, but I'm going to bring up some more detail here. Randall Joyner, the current defensive line coach at Ole Miss, is very interesting to me because he wasn't there at Ole Miss because of Pete Golding. He was there because Lane Kiffin hired him. And I wonder if E-Rob does move on, if Lane can also convince a guy that he brought into Ole Miss and a guy who had last year arguably one of the best, no, not arguably, the best defensive line in the country, with what you're adding up front from the high school recruiting ranks, if Lane also goes back to, yet again, another staff member along the lines of what he did on the offensive side of things, on the defensive side of things, with a defensive line, interior of that defensive line in Randall Joyner. I think that makes a lot of sense, and one we're going to be monitoring. Guys, over the last couple of days, as I threw the carrot out there last night and said that I think you start getting some finality with E-Rob, because I do think in the next 24 to 48 hours, there's going to start being some finality behind the scenes and where teams start moving forward. But I look at and look, E-Rob might be your defensive line coach. I don't think that that's all set in stone right now. I think it's trending in another direction, but there's no telling what Lane Kiffin can do in closing. I think Randall Joyner is another name that we need to monitor here along the defensive line. What they did, meaning what Ole Miss did 2 seasons ago through the portal, is kind of what LSU just pulled off from the high school recruiting ranks. You could come to LSU, you can mold 3 young men to being really good defensive linemen and do some things that, quite frankly, a lot of people probably don't, probably going to monitor how good this defensive line can be. I think Deuce Gerald's, as an example, can be a good edge rusher. I think he can move in the interior as a 3-tech if you need him to. I think you have 2 bona fide interior defensive linemen in Richard Anderson and Lamar Brown. And quite frankly, I think that you got a really good playmaker in Trenton Henderson who will be on the other edge. Now, your defensive line coach is going to be your defensive tackles coach. At edge is going to be Kevin Peoples. But collectively as a unit, I wonder how coaches are going to monitor this situation along the defensive line with what you just pulled off. Because Randall Joyner is going to be a name that we're all going to monitor here. So when we go into the Ole Miss game, and I say we go into the Ole Miss game because we're going to be monitoring it just like everybody else. When LSU goes into and watching the offensive side of things, I also believe that we need to look at the interior defensive line. I don't know what Randall Joyner wants to do. I have no clue on the status of what he would do, but I have been told, and as I threw the carrot out there last night, I do think Randall Joyner is someone that we need to watch. He got hired by Lane Kiffin. That wasn't a Pete Golding thing. Can Lane bring him in and sell him on, brother, did you just see what we did in high school recruiting along the defensive line, and you can mold these kids? And they're telling what can come of that. There's one thing that I know in talking to some coaches around the country. I talked to a coach last night, me and my brother's in town, and I'm sitting on the couch last night, and I get a phone call from a guy who is a position coach in the SEC. And I put it on speakers like, hey, my brother's listening, but we're going to talk about this. There have been a lot of coaches around the SEC on the defensive side of things that are very much monitoring the situation along the defensive line. asking media people questions, asking questions to other coaches. I think what LSU just pulled off in recruiting is the antennas are up. The antennas are up in the sense of, hey, man, what did you just do? What level of talent did you just bring in? And guys, there's one thing that coaches know more than most. We talk about coaches in college football as royalty because, that's just where they put them. The coaches in college football are superstars more than the NFL because the players are superstars in the NFL. Coaches are the superstars majority of the time in college football, and they are monitoring this situation. And I do think that outside of Elijah Robinson, there are going to be people more contacting you than you contacting them on being a part of what you just pulled off. I don't know where LSU is going. I do have been told that you, at least behind the scenes, that there will be some more finality behind the Elijah Robinson situation. So I do wonder, what happens with Chris Kiffin? Do you go after a guy that you're familiar with and Randall Joyner? Those questions are going to be answered sooner rather than later, but I think LSU is going to, and we as a fan base, as a media corps, should very much, from what I've been told, should monitor Randall Joyner. Now, the opposite side of that, Pete Golding's a defensive guy, and I think that they're going to very much battle more on the defensive side of things than they did on the offensive side of things. Let me explain. I think it was pretty much well understood and well perceived and well just monitored throughout this entire Lane Kiffin situation that a lot of these offensive coaches are going to be with Lane Kiffin and go with him. Because Charlie Weiss has been with Lane Kiffin a long time. A long time. Joe Cox has been with Lane Kiffin a long time. Dane Stevens has been in and around with Lane Kiffin for a long time. And I do think that there was some fight, but, there was a report that came out last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess 2 weeks ago now, that Ole Miss was battling for assistant coaches to stay, where a lot of that was along the offense. I have been told from people around the industry that a lot of that had to do with some of the defensive staff as well. Again, need to monitor it, see what happens here. There's some other coaches that we need to talk about. I think Gerald Chapman is someone that we need to keep our eyes on. I think Eric Henderson is someone that we need to keep our eyes on. And I think Coach O is someone that everyone wants to discuss and see what happens there. Again, I will continue with this Coach O thing. I think that there will have to be a lot of convincing for Ed Orgeron to be your D-line coach. I'm not saying he's not going to be, but if it is announced today, tomorrow, next week that Ed Orgeron's your defensive line coach, how do I want to say this? There would have been a lot of convincing of people inside that building to bring him back. Guys, again, I think that what people don't realize, we see Orgeron in a different light. Guys, I love Coach O. You love Coach O. I want to see Coach O get another chance here. I do. Not saying that LSU needs to give him a second chance or another chance. I would love for Coach O to just get another chance if he wants to coach. He is a great person. He's a great human. But you got to understand something. And I will just continue to make this known. Because there are people that I talked to that got fired when that whole thing went down in 2021. I talked to one today that got fired. And I just think that, time heals all wounds. As they say, time heals all wounds. I don't think a lot of people that were there and that were retained forget, and they haven't forgotten. I think fans look at it in a sense of, just bring back Coach O. But guys, behind the scenes, we got to remember what happened. The toxicity that was there was a massive deal. Guys, the reports that were out there are true. I mean, look, I think that we're long past it, and it doesn't really matter anymore. I really don't think any of that shit matters anymore. But we will monitor it. I do think that they will look along the defensive line. I think there's a couple of names of people, and I know Gerald Chapman, I understand the Florida thing. I don't think LSU gives a shit. guys, they were prepared to make Elijah Robinson the highest paid assistant coach in the country. So I do think you get some finality, but I'm just going to be interested to see where they go. I do know, and we'll report this from just things that I've heard, because there are coaches, again, I mean, the only person that knew of the phone call last night was me and the person that I talked to who is an assistant coach in the SEC, and me having him on speakerphone with my brother who's staying at my house because, he's in town. And in all of that, guys, there's a lot of here's the thing that I'd say. Missing out on E-Rob is, if that's what happens, is not based off of LSU. It's based off of his own preference. But there's a lot of inquiring minds, I will say the least. People that, let me just say this, people that you would have no idea that would even be remotely on the radar, that would look at LSU from a position coach perspective, are asking questions. Doesn't mean that they're getting hired. Hell, doesn't even matter. Doesn't even mean that they get an interview or that they talk to Lane Kiffin. But there's a lot of sharks circling the waters because they see the blood in the water of what this position room can ultimately be. Guys, there is a chance here where you have 4 defensive linemen in the interior with Don McKinley, with Richard Anderson, with Lamar Brown, and depending on how you utilize Deuce Gerald's. All of them were top 50 recruits, and 3 of them were 5 stars. That intrigues the shit out of people. So I don't know right now, and I'm sure that look, man, coaching carousels, we talk about this all the time. Coaching carousels, shit change. Like, I've been live for 2 hours now. I've been live since 10 a.m. So the phone calls that I can make, shit changes that quickly. Like, I'll give an example. Shit that was going on during the Lane Kiffin saga, like, LSU getting countered, LSU countering here, and when that's all said and done, we'll talk about it. But like, something that I ran out and that was truthful at the time, LSU had a recounter a counter that was counter to them. So a lot of things can be changing. Here's what I'll tell you. I've been told per sources and per people, Lane Kiffin's been in that building every day, working his ever-living ass off. There have been some things and some inquiring minds to that I know that he knows about, and I think that there's some people that are looking at this job that we would just not even understand. They'd be like, hey, man, what are you doing? I bring all that up to say this, too, to end it before we move on here. There are a lot of people that look at LSU at a different light right now because of Lane Kiffin. Not the bad, the good. Meaning, hey, man, this dude's going to score a lot of points, and we got a shitload of talent along the defense. Blake Baker's a really good DC. What's going on down in LSU? Coaches look at things differently than we do. As fans, as media, when you talk to them, it's just a completely different dynamic of how they look at situations. They look at it as, hey, man, the opportunity there that might be electric for all that we know. So, again, I think there's some names we should monitor, like Eric Henderson, Chapman. I know the extension. I'm going to leave that alone. Trust me, I'm going to leave that one alone. But just extensions don't mean shit. That's all I'm going to say. A lot of people are inquiring about it. I don't know what you're going to do with Chris Kiffin. I think Ed Orgeron, unless you miss on a couple of people, then maybe you turn to him, but there's going to be a lot of convincing that needs to happen there. I've been told that I think behind the scenes, LSU is going to start getting some finality of where this thing's going to go, and they want to get their staff in order. Last thing I'd say about staff, guys, I don't know how many times that I can talk about this Frank Wilson thing. They said that they're going to meet after all of this. Frank Wilson said yesterday that he's going to meet with Lane Kiffin at the end of the season after the 27th of the bowl game. I just feel like that. I don't know where you're going at running back. I don't. I have no clue. I think if you're going to hire Frank Wilson, you would have already done it. Maybe they can smoke the peace pipe, and maybe Lane has a change of heart, change of mind, and we'll see. We'll see. All right. Let me get to a quick break. Hopefully the internet doesn't break on us too. Let me get to a quick break. We'll come back. We'll take some of your super chats. Some of the things on the offensive side of the football. I know we just got done talking about Frank, but I want to double down on something that we've been discussing. We'll do that next. Stay with us. Guys, let me tell you about our good friends over at Grand Slam Heating and Air, where your comfort is their top priority. At Grand Slam Heating and Air, they promise to provide customers with high-quality HVAC service at an affordable price while ensuring the homeowner peace of mind. From their office to your home, they guarantee the best hassle-free experience around. Efficiency and comfort is their game. Let them make your home Grand Slam today. At Grand Slam Heating and Air, they're offering their annual maintenance plan starting off at $18.75 a month and also doing those $99 tune-up promotions. They provide free estimates for system and ductwork replacement, as well as offering financing to get the job done with no money up front. From Baton Rouge to Hammond to Covington, they're all around. So what you need to do today, give them a call at 225-380-9065. That's 225-380-9065. Or go over to their website, getgrandslamair.com. That's getgrandslamair.com, where your comfort is their top priority. Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company. Are you facing tough times due to an injury from a car accident, navigating the complexities of divorce, or purchasing a new home? At the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company, they understand the challenges you're going through, and they are here to help. The lawyer team of Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, along with Morgan Daniels, have the experience and proven track record to give you that peace of mind. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. That's 985-386-7600 to schedule a free consultation at their brand new office located in historic downtown Ponchatoula. They're also doing a special, the AYS special. If you're refinancing or closing on a home in Southeast Louisiana, request the Drake Title Company to handle your closing. If you mention Blake Ruffino and AYS, you're going to receive a $400 discount on title fees. Again, give them a call at 985-386-7600. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by.
We're back.
By the way, I need y'all's assistance on something. What are y'all getting y'all's wives for Christmas? Now, I'm done shopping for my wife. I feel like that I got her something that she is going to love. It's actually the number one thing that she asked for. But I want to do something else, and I'm kind of out of ideas. She gave me a list of stuff, but I kind of like, I'm not going to keep giving her the same stuff. You know, I need some of y'all's help. To all of you inquiring minds out there, or to all of you minds out there that have been married longer than I have, what are you getting your wife for Christmas? That is the big question. By the way, Miss Ruffino is going to have a nice Christmas. She deserves everything about it. All right, let's get to a couple of super chats very quickly before we wrap the show up here. Mark Allen says, I'm an AYSO. Put that on the shirt. Yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be very, very, very funny. Again, I need to, guys, convince me. I just don't want to. I will bring you a part of the AYS team. You just got to convince me. Some of the things I've seen from some of y'all wanting to do it, I mean, you got to convince me better. Elton became a member on the YouTube channel. Thank you, buddy. Looking sharp in your avatar picture here, but my man's looking sharp. Thank you for being a part of the YouTube channel, Elton. We'll get some content out tomorrow. Redline with a $5 super chat says, did you see Deuce's interview on Bengal Tiger? He spoke about E-Rob being here. I did. I did see Bryce Coon's interview with him. I think Deuce Gerald's is a big deal. I mean, I wonder when that was shot, you know, and I look again, I wonder how that's going to play out. I think from E-Rob's situation here, you look at it in a couple of ways. Like, for an example, if someone gave you your start, you're going to always respect them. I think he would be a fool. And I mean this. I think he would be a fool to go to Penn State or to go to Nebraska. Penn State's about to go through a full-blown rebuild. And you're going to lose a lot of games. When you lose a lot of games, they're going to blame you, even though you had to go through a full rebuild. LSU's in a better position than Penn State and Nebraska. And here's a hot take. I think Matt Rule sucks as a coach. I do. I don't like him. I've always thought he's been a bad coach. Blake, he rebuilt Temple. He rebuilt Baylor. Yeah, that's cute. He's gotten into the Big Ten and gotten his shit pushed in. He went to the NFL and got his shit pushed in. I don't blame him for Carolina because I just think that franchise is horribly run. However, I don't like him as a coach, and I think he would be dumb to go there too. Craig on YouTube with a $5 super chat says, Blake, thoughts on how we recruit our defense moving forward, more bodies based on Lane's quick-paced offense. The same. Look, Lane's best roster as a head coach was last year's. I think that team, like their 2024 team versus their 2025 team, I really think that team would beat this team this year, even though they can't run the ball because defensively they were that good. Lane does a really – this is the thought process. We're going to talk about the offense in just a moment before we close it out here. I look at Lane and again, ask my brother. Last night we watched the entire Georgia game. He does a really good job of knowing when to run tempo and when to slow it down. I guess I could pull this up really quickly. From a time of possession standpoint in reference to offense, like time of possession for Ole Miss, I was looking this up the other night, and I was surprised about where they were. I don't remember if it was good, bad, or indifferent. Let me look at this right quick because I know that they weren't in the top 50, but in some of the games against bigger opponents, they were. Like, they won the time of possession. They're 74th in the country in time of possession. So to your point, I do think depth is going to be a big deal. So going into next year when you have a lot of defensive line talent from a freshman perspective, I think that you need to go into there and get some more experience because you're going to rotate a lot too. He just does a really good job of knowing when to hurry up and when not to. But yeah, I think recruiting wise, you're just going to try to get a lot of depth defensively, especially in your front seven. Craig also with a $5 super chat says, Lyman, you are excited to see with the new coaching staff, Lane's offense not named Kern or Solomon Thomas. How about the A&M tight end transfer from last year? So, those are the two that I'm most intrigued of seeing. So this is the thing about the offensive line, and I talked about this last night. The thing that I have been told, and we did a whole segment on this, Craig, you can go back and watch last night's show, but along the offensive line, I think that they feel like they actually do have some pieces. Tyree Adams, I don't think played bad, came back from injury, did really good last week versus 2 weeks ago versus Oklahoma. I think that Carius Kern is going to be a dude, and they like him at guard. I haven't personally, here's where I am. I have not seen enough of Solomon Thomas because he was injured, so I don't know what he can give you. Braylon Moore, there were times where he got out physicaled in the SEC. I think from the center right, you need to look different and look elsewhere. I think Ori Williams played very well. So from what I've been told, they want to monitor over the next 2 weeks of these bowl practices to kind of see where they are because the portal doesn't open until January. So you can get more of an idea about exactly where you are. I am intrigued by Ori Williams based off of just how well he played. I thought Brad Davis completely botched the entire situation at tackle, especially at right tackle. And, look, man. Excuse me. And I think Ori Williams played very well. He played very well. So with all of that being said, we'll see. I still think you need a guard. I still think you need a right tackle. So, those are the players that I'm the most intrigued by. So I know that's kind of a cop-out, but it is. Andrew with a $2 super chat says, what does your life like? What does your wife like? Not life. Or does for fun? She loves makeup, perfume, and trips to the beach. I'm not going to tell you what I got her because she sometimes monitors these shows, but I got her a ring, but not like a diamond ring. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, she's big into makeup. She's an esthetician. She's a makeup artist. She kills it with weddings, by the way. She's an overall beast with that. So good on her. All right. All eyes for LSU are going to be on Ole Miss. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about this. All eyes are going to be on Ole Miss from an LSU perspective. You know, I think there's a couple of things to monitor. So your entire offensive staff that you've already hired is at Ole Miss right now. That still blows my mind. That your entire offensive staff that you have hired is literally in Ole Miss, is in the Manning facility, coaching Ole Miss. That's bizarre to me. But listen, I have gotten a lot of heat from LSU fans over the last couple of days because I said your offense sucked. I said your coaches failed on the offensive side of the football. They did. And look, I see your comments. I see your comments on social media. I see your comments on YouTube. I see your comments on Facebook. You know, I don't read all of them, but I monitor them. I see a lot of your comments and the conversations that you and I have had about LSU offensively from this past year, potentially keeping Frank Wilson, which, again, I can't say this enough. What I'm about to say gets missed every single day. I don't care if you keep Frank Wilson, if you do or if you don't. Doesn't bother me either way. You know why it doesn't bother me either way? Because Ole Miss had the third best offense in the country this year from a total yards standpoint. They were third. Because I can't emphasize this enough. They went into Georgia this year, a top 10 defense, and scored 35 straight points on them. They ran the ball 4 times in the red zone and scored touchdowns. I look at a situation, too, where another top 10 defense that they faced off against this past year in Oklahoma, they whipped their candy asses. So I think for me, so I've said that, like, listen, you failed offensively. I think you failed at receiver. I think you failed at O-line. And I think you failed at running back. All of you collectively failed at quarterback, sustaining post Jane Daniels. It's why Joe Sloan got fired. I mean, guys, it's why he got fired. You failed. It's why Brian Kelly got fired. And I've had a lot of pushback from people about Frank Wilson, about should he stay, should he go? Guys, I don't care. Because when you hired Lane Kiffin, do we understand what you just did? I don't think people fully grasp it yet. I really don't. People in the comments don't fully grasp what you just pulled off. He is the best offensive coach and offensive mind in college football. There's a very strong chance that he might, and you could debate this, that Nick Saban said he was the best offensive mind that I have been around. Nick Saban, the greatest head coach of all time, said that Lane Kiffin was the best offensive mind that he's been around. So when I say I don't care about what happens with Frank, if he stays, great. If he's not retained, fine. Because this past year, Ole Miss went into 2 top 10 places on the road and physically lined up and beat the dog shit out of 2 top defenses. I refuse at this exact moment, not saying we won't do this in the future. At this exact moment, I refuse to tell the guy that Nick Saban called the best offensive mind that I've been around, a guy that's got a top 3 offense in the country, a guy that scored 35 straight points on Kirby Smart, a guy that went into Oklahoma against a top 10 defense and completely dominated. I refuse to look at him and say, hey, man, if you want to make another move at running back, I'm going to be mad or tell you that you're making a wrong move. I have heard media, quote unquote, some that have left the media and trying to come back. I have heard media over and over again. You have been DMing me the clips, even though I don't want you to, justifying keeping Frank. I understand it. I'm not saying to keep him or move away from him. What I am saying is that if Lane Kiffin, the best offensive mind and the guy that had a consistently top 10 offenses every single year without the level of personnel that you can get here, tells you that he wants to move in a different direction and you're saying he's wrong, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. I hate to be that dude to constantly bring that up. But a team that had the third-ranked offense in the country, a running back that had 1,279 yards and 20 rushing touchdowns, a passing offense that's tied for third at 309.6 yards per game, a team that was top 30 in the country on third down, top 16 in the country on fourth down because they go for it on fourth down a lot, a top 10 scoring offense, a top 5 first down offense, and a team in the red zone that scored more points than damn near anybody, even though their percentages was down because they went for it a lot on fourth down. But from a points perspective, one of the highest teams in the country, not just this year, not just last year, but the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. I'm sorry, you're going to have to recalibrate your little mind in reference to who the Rudy Poo you just hired. We got to get it out of our brains if this man wants to make a move. If he wants to keep him, fantastic. Let's roll. If he wants to move on, fantastic. Let's roll. I am tired. I think it is a dumb argument. And I mean this. It is a dumb argument that a guy, everywhere that he has been, in Lane Kiffin or Charlie Weiss for that matter, I think it is a very dumb argument for people to be out there and be upset that this man is making moves offensively. He knows more about offense than all of us combined. I understand the recruiting side of this with Frank. I get it. But you just landed Lamar Brown. You just landed Richard Anderson. And by the way, a 2027 wide receiver out of the city of New Orleans committed to Texas. So yes, Richard Anderson, it's a big deal. It is a massive deal. Lamar Brown, who is literally on your campus right now, it's a big deal. The 2027 class, guys, this staff right now, the number one recruit in the country is trending away from you. The number one receiver, some say the number 2, but the number one receiver in the country in Royale is committed to Texas. So you keep talking to me about New Orleans connections. I get it. The number one thing for Lane Kiffin right now is to flip Royale from Texas to LSU. I think we all get that. But offensively, I'm just not going to tell him what he can and can't do. You haven't had 1,000-yard back. You haven't had a back over 800 yards, much less. I mean, Caden Durham got, a little bit over there after the bowl game, but guys, quite frankly, I refuse to tell Lane Kiffin what he should and shouldn't do offensively. I get the recruiting piece of this. I get that New Orleans is a big deal. You just missed out on the number one player of the city of New Orleans for 2027. And Texas came in here and got him. You've lost on top talent in this state, to be blunt with you. Blaine Bradford was in your backyard and you missed him. You hired the guy that brought him to Ohio State, and quite honestly, because you were so awful at what you did from a recruiting standpoint in some regards, they were like, no. I'm just going to tell you this. I see it. I understand it. I get it. It wouldn't bother me either way. I understand the recruiting piece of this. If this were a defensive thing, and why I was so big on Corey Raymond's stain was because of what Corey Raymond has done in 2 years. It's been a massive deal, and I get that. Again, I have a very, very hard time seeing any logic I get the recruiting piece of telling Lane Kiffin what he's supposed to do when he's got a 1,300-yard back that leads the SEC in touchdowns on Kawan Lacey. They went into Georgia. They went into Oklahoma and beat the shit out of them. Y'all keep arguing this point, but you're not going to win the argument. So, all right. Let's move on here before we get out. Spa day, says Andrew. That's a good one. Keeping our D staff lowers Frank's value. Maybe. You got a lot of guys. You had Alabama coming here with Louisiana guys and beat you for top recruits with Saban. You had non-Louisiana guys come into Louisiana and beat you for top talent when they're not from Louisiana. The secret sauce is not a dude from Louisiana. The secret sauce is having a really good fucking coach and going out there and landing the recruit and paying them the money that they need to be at LSU. I mean, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. I'm so over it. Redline says Wilson just oozed or I don't know what that is. What's that word? What is Redline trying to say? OOSGED? Maybe misspelling. We had to pay Weiss more. I agree. Ole Miss trying to break our bank. My $7.5 million. You have any thoughts? Appreciate what you do. I don't know exactly what you're saying. Maybe offered. Wilson just offered. I don't know what you're saying, Redline. What are you saying? Sorry, posted. Wilson just posted we had to pay Weiss more, $7.5 million. Have any thoughts on that? Let's see what Wilson Alexander said. Let me go to the article. Stand by. Wilson. LSU offensive coordinator. Okay, here we go. LSU offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss reached an amended 3-year contract for $7.5 million a year this week per his new term sheet after there was interest from Ole Miss to keeping him. It includes an annual quote-unquote look-in to always make him the highest-paid SEC offensive coordinator. There you go. Lane was not losing Charlie Weiss Jr. And they've already hired an offensive coordinator. So this has been done. I'm sure that they went after him, but it's already done. They paid him more. They're not going to lose him. Wilson Alexander also reported as well that LSU is indeed hiring Eric Wolford as their offensive line coach. As previously reported, his 2-year deal is set to be approved tomorrow by the LSU Board of Supervisors. So you also have your offensive line coach as well. I don't mind. Look, Charlie Weiss Jr. is a stud. He is a dude. He's been with Lane. I mean, it's his right-hand man offensively. He's the guy that can run his offense without him being involved. So, look, amend it. Do what you got to do. But here's the truth, man. LSU's going all in on this. They ain't – look, you had alignment. Scott Ballard wanted Lane Kiffin. Verge Alsbury wanted Lane Kiffin. Wade Roos wanted Lane Kiffin. The governor wanted Lane Kiffin. They ain't gonna miss out on money to give Lane what he needs. It just ain't gonna happen. I think it's funny that they lost out on Charlie Weiss. And look, Charlie Weiss Jr. literally, they're going to continue to make him the highest paid offensive coordinator in the country. Good. You're doing the same with Blake Baker. That's what you should do. Charlie Weiss Jr. is a dude, man. And then they went and hired a Lane Kiffin guy to be their offensive coordinator. You're not look when you're an offensive minded guy and a guy can run your offense as well. It's like the Kirby Smart Nick Saban thing. The reason Kirby was the highest paid DC for 8 years is because he knew exactly how to run Nick's defense. He knew the ins and outs on every single thing about it. So, yeah. That doesn't bother me at all. Doesn't bother me at all. I'm good with it. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you. I had some family things. We had to go live early today. Till soon. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a great day. Peace.